Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily. I am a nutritionist and medical herbalist, and I am here to help you get comfortable using herbal medicine in your own life. This is another edition of Backyard Medicine, where we talk about plants that are really easy to find and widely found all over the world. But before we get started, please hit that subscribe button. And if you want even more information on herbal medicine from me, you can head on over to my website, bahutakawahealth.com. I'll put all this information in the description box below, and you can sign up for my newsletter there and get a freebie called Build Your Own Herbal First Aid Kit. So today we're going to talk about plantain. The botanical name for plantain is Plantain major, although there are two varieties of this plant that we commonly use in herbal medicine. The other one is called Plantain lanceolata, and I'm going to go outside in a little bit and show you the plant, and there we'll talk a little bit about the differences between those two varieties. So plantain is another herb similar to chickweed that I talked about last time in my other video. If you haven't seen that, I'll put that in the description box below. You should go check it out. That we find growing really widely all over the world. Most people would call this an invasive weed, but it actually is a hugely medicinal plant that just pops up all over the world. Once you've seen plantain, you'll recognize it everywhere. It grows in harsh climates, in temperate climates. You see it in roadsides, in the cracks of sidewalks, in any kind of like disturbed land. It comes back again and again and again. And it's a really awesome plant for pretty much everybody to use. So one of the things that I'm super passionate about is getting your own medicine sustainably. So I feel like foraging has become super sexy, and there's a real danger of over-harvesting, of harvesting the wrong plant. That's really a big one that is really important to focus on, is make sure your identification is like spot on. And but plantain is great because it's, like I said, it's really kind of considered an invasive species, so most people are happy for you to take it away. The big concern with plantain is, has it been sprayed? So because it's considered a weed by lots of people, definitely like stuff that you find in parks or on roadsides, the risk of contamination by pesticides is pretty high. However, if you have a sweet spot of plantain in your own backyard, I highly recommend giving it a little bit of love, and by doing that I just mean like leave it alone until it's ready to harvest, because it is such a brilliant plant for all things inflammatory. So one of the main things that plantain is really good for is inflammation, and you can actually use it like a first aid plant. So if you pick a leaf and kind of squidge it up in your fingers, it releases this kind of gooey stuff, which is called mucilage. And mucilage is sort of like a healing type of goo, right? And if you think of something really soothing and cooling, that's what it feels like. It kind of a little bit similar to like the inside of an aloe vera leaf, not quite as jelly-like, but found way more widely than aloe is in the wild anyways. So aside from mucilage, plantain is quite a nutritious herb, so it's full of minerals like potassium and zinc, as well as flavonoids, so those anti-inflammatory, antioxidant compounds that we find really commonly in any kind of colorful plant. You can use plantain both topically and internally. So topically, it's actually an awesome first aid plant. You get a little mosquito bite, you get like a stung by a bee or something like that. You can actually take the leaf and like smush it up in your fingers, or chew it up even a little bit, and put it directly onto the spot. It doesn't really stem bleeding so much. It's not really, like we call that a styptic, a herb that kind of stops bleeding dead in its spot. That's more yarrow, which we'll talk about another day. But it's really nice for that pain and inflammation or itch kind of thing as well. It really helps to calm that down really quickly.
Okay, so here is our beautiful plantain. So one of her like main identifying features is these broad leaves which have like parallel veins in them. There's another species of plantain, Plantain lanceolata, and that just means like lance-shaped leaves. So she's got skinnier leaves, the other one. They can both be used interchangeably, but this is broadleaf plantain, and the main thing is they will both have these beautiful long ribs, basically. So sometimes another name for plantain is ribwort. But yeah, so these long parallel veins. So that's in like comparison to, say, this is a dandelion, which has one central vein and then branching veins up it. This one has the parallel. So she kind of is a low growing plant, kind of branches out. They call that like a rosette sort of feature, where it kind of comes out of the ground and then the leaves all sort of poke out from the central spot. And then these are her flowers and seed heads as well. So, but they are these like pointy little flower heads. And when she's in flower, they're just like these tiny, 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 let's see if we can focus in. It almost just looks fuzzy. And I mean, some of that is definitely just like the poplar fuzz that's around. But you can see these tiny little flowers at the top. And this plantain is actually related to another plantain, which is Plantago ovata, which is otherwise known as psyllium. And so the seeds from this plantain, as well as that one, are actually like a good form of soluble fiber. And so you can take the seeds to this is still in flower, so you want to wait a little bit longer, and make kind of like a jelly mixture out of it, and it's a really good form of soluble fiber. So that is plantain.
If you're not going to use it like a first aid plant, I would highly recommend, if you find a really good spot of clean plantain, as in like not by a roadside, not in a polluted area, not covered in pesticides, harvest the leaves. And what you want to do is you can take it two ways, either topically or internally. And to do that, to preserve it, what we're going to do is either make an oil externally or turn it into a tea or a tincture for internal use. So making infused oils is super, super easy and a brilliant way to sort of preserve a plant and use it topically. All you're going to do is take the herb, let it wilt overnight. That's really important for most herbs. The amount of water content in a plant, which naturally evaporates over time once it's been picked, can cause rancidity when you're infusing it in oils. So it's really important to let it wilt overnight, even for a couple days, in an area that you have like good airflow with, so either on a screen or, you know, sometimes even just like on a bit of cardboard, something there where it's going to have a little bit of airflow. Like, don't put it in a plastic bag, basically, is what I'm saying. You want to let it, you know, dry out, not have too much condensation going. And then all you're gonna do is chop it up fine and put it into something like a Pyrex, like a glass Pyrex measuring dish, and cover it with oil so that it's fully submerged in the oil. From there, you're gonna take that Pyrex dish with your plantain and your oil in it, and you're gonna put it in a double boiler. So all that is like, get a pot with some water in it and put the Pyrex dish inside it. Pyrex dishes are really awesome for that. You know those measuring cups? I'll show you in a second. Because they have a handle, so they can like sit outside and you can safely pick it up out of your pot of boiling water without burning yourself, basically. That's why I use that. So once you've got your dish inside your pot of water, so all you want to do is bring that water to the boil, but only just, and then turn it down on low. You don't want to overheat your herbs. You really want that, you don't want that oil to be boiling. You really just want to sort of slowly and gently let that water around it simmer and let the oil infuse with the plantain. And I would recommend keeping that on the stove for at least a couple hours. You can do this in a slow cooker as well and really do it like up to 48 hours if you really want to do it. But a couple hours is generally sufficient to pull a lot of that out. And what you'll see after some time is the oil will turn this beautiful dark green color. It just looks so gorgeous. So then you want to let that oil cool and you're just going to strain it. So I would generally recommend having like some muslin or a cheesecloth, and I would just line a strainer with the muslin or cheesecloth, pour your oil with your plantain in it over that into a clean sterilized jar, and then make sure you got really clean hands. And then once you've poured it all in there, you're gonna pick up your cheesecloth and squeeze all the oil.
Okay guys, so here is my Pyrex dish and my pot of water. So you put your herb in the dish, cover it with oil, pop it into the pot, turn it on, and warm it up from there.
Now, if you want to use this herb internally, you totally can as well. And the simplest way to do that is really just to dry it and make it into a tea. So you would start with the exact same process, get yourself a good patch of plantain, cut the leaf, that's what we're using in this instance is the leaf, and let it to dry. But rather than letting it sit just overnight to let it wilt, you want to give it 2 or 3 days until it's really super dry. It's really important to dry your herbs properly. Because just like if you add a damp herb to oil, you can get rancidity. If you dry a herb and then put it away in a bag and leave it, it can get condensation as well. So you really want to make sure your herbs are dried really properly. And then all you're going to do is kind of crumple it up and store it. You can store it in paper bags, you can store it in like a little glass jar, whatever works for you. Using plantain internally as a tea is really beautiful for things like sore throats. So because it has that topical mucilage, if you think about the way that you would use it externally on like a hot, itchy, inflamed spot, it's exactly the same use for internal use, except for then we're talking about like your mucous membranes, right? So the insides of your mouth, your throat, and really all the way down your respiratory and into your gastrointestinal system. So you can use plantain tea for sore throats. It's really good for a cough as well. There's a little bit of research that shows that it's antiviral in its properties. And then you can also use it for inflamed digestive tract stuff. So ulceration, any kind of like IBS, anything that is like feeling like painful and hot and inflamed all the way down the digestive tract. Now, as always, if you are treating a serious condition, if you are working with other healthcare practitioners, if you are on other medications, please see a qualified healthcare professional, whether that's a herbalist or a naturopath or a naturopathic doctor, somebody who's trained in the use of herbs alongside medications or when you're dealing with a more serious condition. As much as plantain, especially as a tea, is a very safe thing to use, I don't want people to think that you can use it and that's going to like fix your problems without kind of digging deeper into what's going on. So it's just really important to be safe and mindful that if you're dealing with something more serious or you're on medications, that you really want to work with somebody who can look after you well. So that is plantain. That is episode 2 of Backyard Medicine. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you did not see the first episode on chickweed, please go check that out. It'll be in the description box below. If you want to find me other ways, you can find me on Instagram. I'll pop my handle up here somewhere. I don't know. And on there, I often share sort of more like impromptu kind of stories and things that I'm making from my backyard, information about plants. You can also go to my website, which is bahutakawahealth.com, and sign up for my newsletter, and there you will get a freebie called Build Your Own Herbal First Aid Kit, which includes lots of my favorite plants that I think everybody should have on hand all the time, no matter what. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I would love if you subscribed. I'm super grateful to everybody who subscribed after my first plant medicine video. You might see I've got some like really old kind of crappy videos from a few years ago where I wasn't really paying attention to lighting and I didn't edit anything, but I'm keeping it up because it's all a journey, right? Isn't it? And I really just want this channel to be informative and supportive so that you feel totally confident going out there and finding plants, using them safely and effectively for yourself and your family. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and I will see you again next time. Bye!